awful thankful to be here this morning. I'm just like my brother Jeremy there. I'm pretty satisfied with the things I've heard and the singing and the prayer. And he added to it just a little bit more.
Bless him, Lord. There's plenty of blessings waiting for us to reach out for them.
And personal relationship he's talking about, you know, it's, you go through life and you'll meet certain people and, you know, you'll want to be friends with them, or you'll, you know, if you're a man after a woman or whatever, you'll be like, well, maybe I want to marry her one day, but you don't always, you know, it don't always end up the way some people want it, you know. But that's the difference in life and my Lord, because if you want that relationship, it's there.
That's right.
It's not going anywhere. Some people will tell you that he's only obligated to, or that he'll only knock on your heart's door just one time. If you don't answer it, that's it.
Yeah. He's staying.
Well, I'm going to tell you today that I truly feel like I'm a child of God. And if that were the case, then I wouldn't be. There's
That's right.
just no way I was.
That's right. It took answering the first call.
It was pride more than anything
I would have missed that boat.
that kept me from the Lord. And you know, it's a dangerous thing. You know, I was thinking about throughout the week, you know, I wasn't able to make it out here last Sunday, and me and Rachel really wanted to be here because Brandon shared with us all before you guys came out the dream that he had. I didn't get to hear that preached, but I imagine that it was pretty good. And you know, I get to thinking a little bit about myself, and I kind of got down a little bit, I guess you could say. I was thinking, you know, I've heard Chris tell pretty similar stories, the fishing stories and the good stories that they get from dreams.
I've talked to everybody.
You know, I think to myself, you know, I don't get those dreams. You know? What am I doing wrong? That, you know, because just about every preacher I know, you know, they've had some dream or another. Jeremy had the dream about the girls following the man and going into the church house, and you old and gray-headed up there. Brandon has his, and I'm gonna go into what the dreams are, and you've told quite a few, but you know, through the week, this week especially, I ask myself, you know, what am I doing wrong, maybe, that I don't get those kind of testimonies or those kind of things to share, because I love hearing those things. And you know, I truly believe those dreams that you brothers experience are from God, and the reason I say that is when I hear them,
for everybody.
When I hear them, I can feel the Spirit.
Yeah.
Some people wonder if they've ever felt the Spirit or if the Spirit's moved upon them. If you've sat in a church house, you know, it's not the things that we say or how we say them. When the Spirit moves, you'll feel it. I've seen people get up and not even barely preach, just cry, and see people coming to the church that hasn't been going long, or maybe the first time, and I'll see them cry a little bit.
I've seen deaf people show.
You know, a few weekends ago at my house there, I seen 2 little boys that are lost sitting in the corner crying. You know,
Right.
and I truly believe that it's because the soul, and I do believe that we all have souls, and they yearn for the Lord. And it don't take much more than the preaching or the singing or just a good heartfelt testimony to stir up that soul and get you going just a little bit. You know, when you hear certain things and tears start to flow, or for a longest time I would fight them back, but that Spirit would work on me so hard And it wasn't always from the same thing. It wasn't always from the preaching. It wasn't always from the singing. I could look around the room and see certain people crying.
Yeah.
Not saying a word, not even singing, just see them crying. And I could feel that spirit. And my Lord, He is a spirit today.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, this week I had a real long discussion with a guy I work with, and he's a Muslim. And we started talking, and he said, well, you know, I believe in the same God that you do. I just believe in different parts and aspects of it. You know, and I was nice about it. And we had a pretty interesting conversation. You know, the way he was putting things, it's not exactly what you see on TV, and not as violent as some people would think. But you know, after the end of the conversation, I just mostly listened because some of the things were interesting to me. I don't know anything about the Muslim faith, but he said, "See, that's really, you know, after a long story, that's the only difference we have." You know, and I just had to look at him. You know, there's a huge difference in what we believe if you don't believe that Christ was the Son of God.
You're born again.
Because without Christ, my religion, my relationships, they mean nothing. Nothing about Christianity makes sense unless you believe that Jesus was the Son. And how do you know, he asked? How do you know that He's the Son? How do you know that Jesus is who they say He is? He said, I believe that Jesus was a real man, but not the way that you do. I said, well, you need to come out to church one day and let us talk about Him. Because when I didn't even believe or know anything about Him, a little bit of preaching about Him and a little bit of songs about Him, they stirred up something inside of me. You know, I don't need... And he went into a lot of scientific things in history and stuff and tying it into his faith and he was saying, I can tie all this into what I believe. What can Christians do? You know, we can tie as much as we want. But the faith is where it's all. That's where it all is.
Yeah.
You know, the feeling that I get when I'm up here, and, you know, I'm not a big crier, but, you know, it's hard to keep me from crying when I'm in the church.
Yeah.
You know, the things that I feel, the times that I've prayed and the prayers that have been answered, that is where I get my evidence. I don't need nobody else telling me anything, you know. But you know, Thursday there, after going through a week like I did there, I've been just working a lot, and at work I get to do I get a lot of downtime, and it seems like I fill that time if I walk around what people may think talking to myself, but I'm either singing a song or just preaching around a little bit, and you know, it's been a real blessing to me to be able to work out there and to do those things. But you know, I woke up Thursday night and was getting ready to go out to work, and I woke up and I was pouring sweat. I just had a little dream there, and I'll tell a little bit about it. And, you know, I dreamed that me and Rachel was sitting in the house, and I looked outside, and it's the weirdest thing, and it was so vivid though. I looked out and I seen a lioness running around in my yard, just a big cat, just running around my yard, and you know, of course, being in a dream, you know, that's awkward. I'm gonna go shoot it, you know. I had told Rachel jokingly before when we had read about Brandon's dream there, I said, you know, it's kind of funny that they keep having these dreams when the only thing I dreamed last night, I dreamed I shot a deer. What is wrong with me that they get all these dreams?
Yeah.
What is wrong with me that I don't have this here? Well, you know, in that dream, I can remember it so well, and I thought about it. I've thought about it all weekend. You know, I went out there, and I was, in that dream, I was going to shoot it, because I said I have kids that go out there and play, and you know, you don't want your kids to be in any danger. You know, I went out there, and when I got out there, I got ambushed. It wasn't just a lioness, there was a lion. There was more lionesses I ran into. A lion's den there of sorts. I ran into that lion and all its pride there. And you know, in that dream, it was so vivid to me that they were coming at me and they were trying to tear at me. And I can still see just as plain as day, face to face with the lion and seeing his teeth and he's staring me right in the eyes, ready to kill me there. You know, and I thought to myself, I gotta get inside the house or these things are going to take me out of this world. You know, and I started to back my way up and I made it to my door there and was able to close it. And you know, I was telling Rachel, we gotta do something because our kids play out there. You know, we gotta get rid of these things here. And you know what the thing is, I woke up and you know, and it was a terrifying dream there. And I was thinking to myself again, you know, well, I have another story, something I dreamed about, but what is it of God? I don't understand why I don't get these things. But you know, I was on my way to work and I kept thinking to myself, you know, about that dream, and I thought about, I ran into the lion's pride there, and that word pride, you know, in that dream, that pride there, it was the most dangerous thing in that dream. It was getting ready to consume me. Well, how often in this life does your pride consume you? You know, for the longest time, the Lord, He was working on me for a long time, many months, and what it was my pride that was holding me back. There would be times that I wanted to just cry out. They'd open the church doors, and oh, my legs, they were shaking, and my heart, it was pounding so hard that I thought I was getting ready to lose my breath and fall out on the floor. And listen, I had that same syndrome there, that your old daughter had there. You listen, you know, and I just call it a little syndrome, a little disease that they're talking about me, that talking about me disease. Every time that somebody got up, you know, I thought they're talking to me. Somebody's told them something about me. But you'd be surprised that there's a lot of people in these big church houses that one person can get up and they can start to preach, and two people with different situations are going to say the same thing. He's talking about me. My Lord, He knows how to talk to you better than you know how to talk to anybody else. It only takes a few things to get the soul stirred up there. You know, I started thinking, what about those lines there in that dream? What in the world could that have been? You know, how can I relate that to God just a little bit? And I started thinking about Daniel there. Listen, Darius, he had appointed quite a few princes there from what I read. And I think it was 3 presidents to be over them. And Daniel, he was one of the presidents there, and it seemed like he was the most favored there of Darius. You know, he had, the Bible said he had an excellent spirit about him there. And you know, Darius, he favored him quite a bit, and I'd say a little bit of jealousy set up in the princes and the other presidents there, and they wanted Daniel taken out of there because he was to inherit the realm when Darius was to go on. And you know, Daniel, he was a good man of faith and a man of God. Listen, you know, they decided they were going to come up with a decree, kind of like a law there, a law that they were going to get Darius to pass there, that for 30 days that nobody could pray into their gods, that they could only pray and serve under that king there. And you know, they had went to Darius there and they presented that to him, and sure enough, he passed it. And I'm betting he didn't know their intent there. But when Daniel heard about this, it didn't break his spirit one bit. He didn't turn away from the Lord when faced with that law. And he knew what that law was. If you were to break that law, they would throw you down in that lion's den. Listen, you know, and when he would go pray, it says in the Bible here that when he would kneel down, his windows would be open out to Jerusalem, and he would pray. He wasn't ashamed. You know, with those windows open, he kept on praying. It says 3 times a day. And when those presidents and when those princes caught him doing that there, the first thing they did was run to Darius. And that law could not be broken. There was nothing Darius could do. And you know, it troubled Darius there, but he had no no choice but to get Daniel into that lion's den. Even when he put Daniel in the lion's den, it said that night he fasted, he couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep, music couldn't soothe him there. The music, it wasn't the music that could soothe him there, but what he needed was that spirit, and he needed to know that Daniel was alright, because nobody could find fault in Daniel, so they went to attack his faith. That's the only way they could have got him in there. And you know, I think about, and it's been on my mind ever since Brandon preached it a long time ago. I don't even know if you remember. He said, I wonder what Daniel was doing down there. Was he petting the lions there? What was he doing? All there with all the time. I know that I've got a cat there at my house. And you know, it's not a big lion, but it always wants to be petted and always wants to rub up against you. When a lion's mouth is shut like that and it can't harm you, what's it going to do? Does it want to be petted? What goes on there? You know, Daniel, he went out that morning at daybreak. As soon as he could, he ran out there to check and see. Daniel, did your God protect you from this? Did he deliver you? And come to find there that Daniel, he was okay. He didn't have one mark on him. And listen, how unusual it was. But in that dream, I was thinking to myself, you know, I've been thinking about this dream for so long. And you know, I love the Lord, there's no doubt about that. But you know, in this dream, I never once leaned on the Lord, and I was getting torn to shreds, and I was getting eat there. And you know, I know exactly what Daniel went through. Why didn't I do these things here? The pride inside of me made me think that I could get myself back to where I needed to be. And you know, I read a little story last night, you know, about a man who started going to church. He joined a church there that was real big on Scripture, but they didn't believe that you could be blessed to preach the Word, that you had to be. They took a lot of pride in knowing everything about this book here, so that they could attack you and argue the points with you and say, I know this better than you do. And he said he had been in there for so long at that church, and he knew a lot about the Bible, but this was what really got me here. Listen, I was a prideful young man before I came to the Lord, and this man here, he met a little girl, you know, when he was in his 20s there, and that girl, she was a preacher's daughter there, and you know, he was an old Baptist preacher there, and you know, we definitely believe in the Spirit today, and if we don't, we need to keep our seat. If I didn't believe in the Spirit, I wouldn't get up here, because old Shad can't do it himself. You know, I heard Fred Neely, I believe it was, said when he first answered his calling, he said he probably couldn't have quoted a scripture too, and I was the same exact way. But it sets a fire down inside of you and a zeal where you want to chase after those things. He said he started to do a lot of talking with, listen, that daughter's father there. Listen, that old preacher man, and he would tell him all sorts of things. There was a time when I was confused going out there to Pilgrim's Prayer Church up in Kentucky, and you know, I can remember one instance where we was at a ball game a few nights before, and we had went over to Chris's there, and I was talking to him. I could tell that he knew something was wrong with me because he was requesting to talk to me here and there. But one day I decided, well, I'm going to go talk to him this time, and you know, we were talking there, and I told him I'm not good enough for the things that you guys preach about. And you know, I can remember we got to talking about something that happened at a ball game there. I'd seen a guy that, listen, and I used to love to fight. That's all I used to love to do. I'd seen a guy that I wanted more than anything just to go after him right there, and I was telling Chris about it, and he said, well, what did you do? And he said, no. I said, no, I didn't do anything. I just stood there. He said, what would you do a few months ago before you started going to church? And I said, I believe I would have got a hold of him there. And he said, well, what do you think's going on? Listen, and it made me think to myself, what am I doing? You know, and I even had to, when I closed the church doors, you know, or when I opened the church doors, I'm sorry, when I open them, I'm not going to tell you to put your head down. Listen, if
That's
you
right.
are going to deny,
Serve God.
deny Jesus here, He's going to deny you to His Father one
Lord
day.
be God
I
and
don't
serve
quite
Him.
understand that. You need to humble yourself down
That's right.
and swallow that pride. If you are here seeking but one thing that got this young man, he had been doing that talking. He was doing talking with that old preacher man. You know, when he was sitting in church one day and another preacher was just walking by, getting ready to start preaching, shaking hands, and he said he put his, that man had put his hand on the back of his head and said, why are you here today? But he was looking out at the crowd, and he said, when he said that, his heart started to melt. He said, if I've ever felt the Spirit, right there was the first time. He said it again. He took his hand off his head and said, what are you here for? Well, today, Canaan Shore, I want to ask you, are you like me this morning? Are you here this morning, just a child of God, just looking for a blessing to get through your week? Because we need it here. We're not perfect here. Are you somebody that's seeking? Are you somebody that's seeking that is here to find the Lord? Is that your intent today? Or are you somebody who is just here playing the part because somebody told you to, or you feel obligated? If that's your case, I can tell you this book I've got here has many accounts talking about the power and importance of prayer. I suggest you pick one up and you start praying to my God, because I'm telling you, and I don't want to say this to be mean, if you come to the church and if you have been here the past few weekends and haven't felt a little bit, a little taste of what I felt, then you need to pray, because something is wrong. Listen, you know, I'm going to say right now that the church doors are open. You go ahead and get you a song. If there's anybody here that needs a place to call home, Canaan Shore's doors are open to all the children of God today. I'm finding more common around here. A woman has said that, you know, when she came up as a Catholic and her family, when she was younger, they were good people, no doubt, and they got her baptized as a baby and dedicated her to the Lord there. She said, but still ill thoughts were in her mind, and she still grew up, and she said she was living in sin, and then she met a man, a little boyfriend of hers that was a preacher, and she started going to church with him, and he had told her, they told her there at the church, if you read this little prayer right here and say it, listen to sinner's prayer, that you'll be saved. And she said, you know, I read it there, and it wasn't 2 weeks later, I was back to doing the things. I was back to doing the things that I used to do. But you know, there was a time when she had came to a little church with not many people, and some old preachers there. Listen, said some things that she said, it stirred her heart. It's just like the little girl that was back here the other morning, after before we took her out and baptized her. She sat back there and she cried. Listen, and you know, I sang another song because I knew what she was feeling. But you know, this thing, all I could think about was that my children were going to be outside playing, and I didn't want them to get hurt. But you know, that's your family. If you don't want to take your family to where you're going, listen, you need to be doing some talking. Because when she got up here and Chris had announced that she was giving her hand to the church, I watched the mother start crying. I watched Tiffany start crying. Even Josh there started to tear up, and watching them hug there. Oh, that spirit was flowing. And I look forward every time I come out, looking for someone else to make that leap.
There died, there I saw her spirit fading.
I dream about honey, not much of a fisherman. They all scorn, and when I
me
stand
to
up here,
shine.
I'm not much of a fisherman,
Well,
but I'm still a hunter. And you know I hunt for those that are lost. And listen, the words that come out of my mouth, that's my rifle and the ammunition. It's my Lord.
Side oft I wander to the churchyard. Oft I wander to the churchyard. Flowers that plant with tender care. Flowers to plant with tender care. You know, when Tammy, you had told me that Pam was already